Some strength never raises its voice. It shows itself in a gate repaired with rawhide before sunrise, in a ditch cleared by hand after the first frost, in a claim marker kept straight when every neighbor has already decided the place is dying. Wade Harland had built his name on noticing what other men ignored. 240,000 acres on the dry side of the Arkansas River, 9,000 head of cattle, 3 banks that answered his letters before sundown. He had ridden through blizzards, grasshopper years, rustler scares, and droughts that turned creek beds into chalk. But on a gray November morning in 1878, he saw something that made him stop his horse in the middle of the trail. A dead homestead was working. The place sat below a cut of cottonwoods, half hidden from the wagon road. The barn roof sagged. One chimney leaned like it had lost an argument with the wind. The corral rails were split, and the south line fence had 3 open wounds in it. By every outward sign, the claim should have been empty. Except the front path had been raked clean. The pump handle had fresh oil on it, and along the frozen edge of a narrow irrigation ditch, someone had chipped away the ice so the trickle from the north seep could keep moving. Wade sat in the saddle and stared. He trusted hired men with cattle. He did not trust hired men with water. In that country, water was not comfort. It was not convenience. It was the thing that decided whether a ranch became a dynasty or a paragraph in a courthouse book. He swung down from his horse. At the gate, a strip of boot leather had been used to hold a broken hinge level. Not pretty work. Good work. The kind that said whoever lived here did not have money. But they still had standards. Inside the cabin, a woman slept sitting upright at the kitchen table. One hand rested on an open ledger. The other still held a pencil. A lantern had burned low beside her. Near the stove, a framed deed hung above a row of folded tax receipts. Mercer Homestead Claim. Filed 1871. 160 acres. Las Animas County, Colorado. Not decoration. Proof. Her eyes opened before Wade made a sound. She did not gasp. She did not reach for drama. She simply looked at him with the sharp, flat focus of someone whose body had learned never to sleep all the way. "You are standing on my claim," she said. "I am," Wade answered, staying beside the open door. "Your gate was down." "My gate was leaning." "It was one gust from down." Then the wind and I had not finished the argument. Her name was Clara Mercer, 34 years old, widowed 4 winters, and dressed for work before most ranch hands had found their boots. There was mud on the hem of her skirt, ash on one sleeve, and raw skin across both knuckles. Wade had met desperate people before. Clara Mercer did not look desperate. She looked tired. There is a difference. "Running stock?" he asked. "Sold the last cows in August." "To eat?" "To pay taxes." She said it without shame, which made the sentence heavier. During the hard, dry years after 1876, small claim holders all across southern Colorado had faced the same brutal arithmetic. Keep the animals and lose the deed, or sell the animals and keep the ground. The Homestead Act had promised land to people willing to work it. It had not promised weather. Wade glanced at the ledger. Every page was ruled clean. Water flow, fence breaks, seed stores, county taxes, tool repairs, dates of frost. This was not a woman waiting to be rescued. This was an operation running on the last possible fuel. Will. "How long have you been alone out here?" he asked. She closed the ledger. "I have not been alone. I have been responsible." That was when Wade stopped thinking of the place as abandoned. He walked the south fence after she gave him permission. 3 sections were gone entirely. 2 more would fail before spring. The ditch line had been cut correctly, but the crossing below it was dangerous. If a cattle herd pushed through that low draw, the bank would collapse and bury the narrow channel that fed her garden. Before barbed wire became common in the West, a broken fence was a nuisance. By the late 1870s, it had become a legal invitation. A gap could become trespass. Trespass could become damage. Damage could become a dispute. And disputes had a way of favoring whoever arrived with money, men, and a lawyer who knew which judge owed which favor. Clara Mercer had none of those things. When Wade returned to the cabin yard, she was hauling brush to brace the ditch wall. Her arms were shaking by the time she lifted the last bundle. She saw him looking and lifted her chin. "Say the number." He understood her immediately. Not sympathy. Cost. "Fence, ditch brace, and shed roof before snow," he said. 5 days, 4 men, around $55 in materials. She looked past him at the south line. $55 might as well have been 5,000. "I'm not asking for charity," he said. "I did not offer you the chance. I need winter movement across the North Draw. My herd can reach the lower grass without cutting through Cooper's land. 8 weeks each winter for 3 years. Fair rate. Written lease. My crew fixes the fence, the ditch crossing, and the shed roof before freeze." She studied him as if the offer itself were a horse with 1 bad leg. "Why not buy it?" she asked. "That is what men like you do when they find water. Because you did not say it was for sale. Most men do not wait for that." "No," Wade said. "Most men don't." She looked toward the deed above the stove. He did not follow her eyes. He already knew. "You keep that paper where you can see it from the table," he said. "A person does not do that because she is planning to hand it over." For the first time, her expression changed. Not softened. Changed. "In writing," she said. "And the lease ends if your cattle break the ditch bank." "Agreed. And if the crossing needs repair after each drive, your men do it before sundown." "Agreed. And the claim remains mine." Wade removed a notebook from his coat. "Miss Mercer, that is the first line." He wrote the terms on the porch rail because the kitchen table was hers, and he had not been invited to use it. She read every word. Then she read the spaces between the words. Only then did she sign. The crew arrived before sunrise 2 mornings later. 4 men, 2 wagons, posts, wire, shingles, river rock, nails, and a barrel of lime for the ditch wall. Clara was already outside. She took a post-hole digger from the wagon and walked to the south line without asking where to begin. The foreman, Jonas Pike, watched her for half a second, then handed her a pair of work gloves. Not because she was helpless, because she was working. That difference mattered. By noon, every man on that fence line understood it. Clara knew which posts had rotted below ground. She knew where the soil caved after rain. She knew which stretch of wire had to be set higher because antelope crossed there and ruined bad work. Wade arrived that afternoon with the finalized lease. Notarized in town. 2 copies. A 3rd copy recorded with the county clerk before any cattle moved. Clara read it standing beside the ditch, one boot in the mud, wind pulling loose hair across her cheek. "You added a bank restoration bond," she said. "I did." "I did not ask for that." "No." "Then why is it here?" "Because if my cattle damage your water, my money should already be tied to the repair." She looked at the paper again. Most men used fine print as a trap. Wade Harland had used it as a fence. That evening, Jonas told her what Wade had said before the wagons left the Harland spread. "Mrs. Mercer knows that claim better than any man I'm sending. If she corrects you, treat it like weather. Do not argue with weather." Clara took that in quietly. He had not sent men to take over her place. He had sent them to be useful on it. On the 5th day, the south fence stood straight. The shed roof no longer showed sky. The ditch crossing had stone under it, brush packed behind it, and a sloped approach that would turn cattle weight away from the fragile bank. That night, Clara walked the whole line with a lantern. She touched each brace, each post, each place where new work met old work. Then she went inside, opened the ledger, and wrote 1 sentence under the date. Lease signed. Line held. After that, she loaded her husband's old Remington revolver and set it beside the ledger. Because a line on paper was strong. But some men did not respect paper until they saw who stood behind it. The man who arrived the next Monday came on a polished bay horse with silver on the bridle and city leather on his gloves. He did not look at the ditch. He did not look at the fence. Men like that rarely looked at work. They looked at weakness. "Mrs. Mercer," he said, smiling too widely. "Silas Rook, Denver Land and Improvement." "I know the name." "Then you know I can solve your problem." "My problem has been identified incorrectly." His smile held, but the warmth left it. Rook had been buying distressed claims ahead of railroad surveys for 2 years. He preferred widows, old men, and families whose cattle had died before their taxes did. His contracts were legal enough to survive a fast reading, and crooked enough to ruin anyone who read slowly too late. He had acquired 14 parcels between Pueblo and the Purgatoire in 26 months. All cheap, all from people who had run out of room to say no. $900, Rook said. Cash close. You walk away clean. The Mercer claim is under recorded winter lease through 1881. With Harland. With Wade Harland. For the first time, Rook stopped smiling. Only for a breath. Then he began again. Leases can be challenged. Recorded leases are harder. County books burn, clerks misfile, boundaries move when surveyors disagree. There it was. Not an offer anymore. A threat wearing a clean coat. Clara did not reach for the revolver. She did not step back. She only looked at him until his smile became work. I will return Friday, he said. I advise you to have a more sensible answer. After he rode off, Clara went inside and wrote in the ledger. Silas Rook, November 18th, Threat made plain. Friday. Then she sent a boy from the foster place to the Harland Ranch with one folded note. Wade arrived Thursday evening with Jonas Pike and 2 riders who did not waste words. He found Clara at the kitchen table cleaning the Remington. He looked at the pistol, then at the ledger, then at her. "You know how to fire it." "My husband taught me after our first winter. I did not come to ask you to hide in the house." "Good," she said, "because I would disappoint you." A small silence moved between them. Not romantic, not yet. Something sturdier. The understanding between 2 people who had both measured the same danger and decided to face it awake. Friday morning came white with frost. Silas Rook arrived with 2 hired riders and a rolled document tied in red cord. He stopped at the south fence line, exactly where the new wire caught the pale sun. Wade stood on Clara's side of the fence. Jonas and the 2 Harland men stood behind him. Clara stood 6 feet to Wade's right, not behind him. The Remington was at her hip. The ledger was tucked under her arm. Rook looked from Wade to Clara, then to the repaired ditch crossing behind them. He understood the scene. A weak claim would have looked lonely. This one looked recorded. "Harland," Rook said, "you are far from your own range." "My cattle cross that draw under lease," Wade answered. "That makes the draw my business." "Temporary business." "Recorded business." Rook's jaw shifted. He turned to Clara. "My offer stands until sundown." "No," Clara said. The word carried across the frost cleanly. Rook waited, expecting more. She gave it to him. "No on Monday. No after the threat. No with witnesses. No with the lease recorded. No while I am breathing on this ground." One of Rook's riders looked away. The other touched his reins and did not seem to know why. Rook's face did not change much. Men practiced in pressure rarely show the first crack. But Wade saw the calculation leave his eyes. There was nothing soft to push against. No lonely widow. No unrecorded paper. No broken fence. No private fear. Only a woman, her claim, a ledger, a legal lease, and enough witnesses to make trouble expensive. Rook tipped his hat. "This county will not always belong to cattlemen." "No," Clara said, "but this claim will still belong to me." He rode away without the document unrolled. No one spoke until the hoofbeats faded. Then Jonas Pike let out one dry breath. "That," he said, "is the first time I have seen Silas Rook carry paper home unused." Clara was already walking back to the house. By the next week, half the county had heard some version of it. At the feed store, men said Harland had scared Rook off. At the church steps, women said Clara Mercer had done it with one word. At the recorder's office, the clerk said the truth was better than both versions. When Wade came in to confirm the filed lease, old Martin Bell, who'd kept county books since the first rush of claims, tapped the page with one finger. "You know what you did here?" Bell asked. "I leased a winter crossing." "No. You made her claim expensive to steal." Wade said nothing. Bell leaned back in his chair. "Speculators can swallow a widow," They can swallow a bad fence. They can swallow a tax delay. But a recorded Harland lease with repair terms and witnesses? He shook his head. That has bones in it. Wade looked at the ink drying beside Clara Mercer's name. That was the intention, he said. When he told Clara later, she had the ledger open on her lap and a sack of seed potatoes beside her chair. Mr. Bell is right, she said. About the lease, about the expense. Then she looked up. And about your intention. It was not thanks, exactly. It was recognition. For Wade, it landed deeper. Winter tightened around them after that. Ice built at the ditch edges. Cattle crossed twice a week under the lease. Clara inspected the bank after every movement and sent written reports to the Harland Ranch. Bank firm, stone holding, 2 hoof cuts repaired, no seep loss. Wade wrote back with equal precision. Move the west brush pack 6 feet down. Watch thaw after south wind. Send invoice for lime. It should have been business. It became, line by line, something closer to trust. One afternoon in January, Wade found her crouched at the crossing with a measuring cord in one hand and a broken clod of frozen mud in the other. "This approach is wrong," she said before greeting him. He dismounted. "You built it." "I built it for frost. I am looking at thaw." She pointed with the cord. "When the ground softens, cattle will turn here. Their weight cuts toward the ditch, not away from it. The rock needs to shift downslope before March." Wade followed the line of her hand. She was right. Not lucky. Right. It was the kind of knowledge that never made speeches and rarely made money. But without it, men with money lost land and called it bad fortune. "You see these things early," he said. "I have to." "No," he answered. "You choose to." She looked at him then. The wind moved over the dry grass. Somewhere behind them, one of his cattle broke ice with its nose. Wade removed his hat. "Mrs. Mercer, I would like to discuss a permanent arrangement." Her expression did not move, but the air did. "Permanent how?" "Your claim remains yours. My herd gains secured winter passage. Your water records become part of the East Range system. You manage that system. Paid, named, written." "That sounds like a contract." "It is." "And the rest?" He held her gaze. "The rest is that I would like to come home to the same table where that contract is kept." Clara did not answer him that day. Wade did not ask twice. That mattered too. 3 mornings later, she rode to the Harland spread before breakfast and found him at the lower tank breaking skim ice with a shovel. "I have conditions," she said. He set the shovel down. "I assumed you would." "The Mercer claim stays registered in my name." "Yes." "The water books remain mine to manage." "Yes." "If we marry, I do not become furniture in your parlor." A faint warmth moved through his face. "I have never mistaken you for furniture." "I'm not finished." "I know. If a man comes with an offer for my land, he hears no from me, not from you on my behalf." "Yes. And the operating agreement is recorded before the marriage license." Wade reached into his coat and handed her a folded paper. She opened it. The agreement was already drafted. Not signed, not presumed. Drafted. The first line read, "Mercer claim remains separate property of Clara Mercer." She read it once, then again. Then she looked at him for a long time. "You were confident." "No," Wade said. "Prepared." That was the answer that decided it. Spring came late, and then all at once. Snowmelt ran through the north seep without taking the bank with it. The south fence held through the first cattle push. The shed roof shed rain instead of collecting it. Potato shoots lifted green through the cold dirt. At the county office, 3 documents were entered on the same day. The Winter Crossing lease extension, the East Range Management Agreement, and, after both of those, the marriage record of Wade Harland and Clara Mercer. Martin Bell wrote each line in the county book with the slow satisfaction of a man who understood what he was recording. Not a rescue. A boundary respected. By summer, the sign at the lower road had changed. Harland-Mercer Range. The letters were plain black on whitewashed board. Nothing silver. Nothing grand. But the south fence was straight behind it, and the ditch water ran clear. One evening, Wade found Clara at the garden edge, checking the rows with the ledger under her arm. "Beans this year?" he asked. "Beans, squash, and rye after harvest. The soil needs feeding." He nodded. "Sound decision." She smiled then, barely. Not because he approved, because he had learned not to pretend she needed approval. There is a kind of wealth that never shines from a bridle. It shows itself in a line repaired before it breaks, in a contract written before trust is tested, in a powerful man who understands that respect is not what you give after you take control. It is the control you refuse to take. Clara Mercer kept her claim. Wade Harland gained more than a crossing. And Silas Rook, who had built a career on finding the weak place in every fence, finally met a line he could not move. Not because it was nailed deeper than the others, because the woman who owned it knew where it belonged. And the man beside her knew enough not to step over it.